First, I want to thank Tony and Susan Chavez for helping to coordinate this today and really making me feel at home here. And by the way, I've been in the audience out there several times. I belong to the Carbondale, Illinois UU Church. We call it CUF, Carbondale CU. So yeah, I'm one of you, and I'm here to give my sermon, I guess you could call it. So what this is going to be about, if you haven't guessed so far, is about the natural origins of religion and science, as opposed to, for example, supernatural origins of religion and science. So this is my first book, The Invention of God, The Natural Origins of Mythology and Religion, which I published around 2010. And most of this material I researched during the 1990s. Nothing has changed. The book still basically good after all those years, which is what I intended. I did make some minor corrections to the second edition, but now I'm writing a second book. So this book concerns the ground beneath us and the air around us, how those influenced science and religion. And the book I'm writing now, which I'm going to show you a picture of in a second, has four parts: the ground beneath us, the air around us, and also the sky above us, and the knowledge inside of us. So that's what I'm working on now. And if you go to my website, you can download a free draft of it. My website is earth360.com. Very easy to remember, earth360.com, okay. So, yeah, and I welcome comments, feedback on the book if you do read it. With that, let's go to the next slide. I have a clicker. Sorry, I forgot. So this is my next book. It's going to be called Atoms and Souls. So science and religion, the prehistoric origins of science and religion. So that's my new book cover. And let's see, I think I can do this. Yeah. So my thesis in both books is that the pyramids represent volcanoes. And I'm going to give you just a few of the reasons that I came to that conclusion. So we're going to go to, this is the Nile River, which of course goes into the Mediterranean Sea at the top. If you go up here, you're going south. Unlike in America, we think of the rivers flowing south, but here the river flows north. If you go up the Nile River, you go into the White Nile and the Blue Nile. One of them goes into Ethiopia, and one goes up further. And this whole region is called the Great Rift Valley. Those are two geological plates. They call them tectonic plates, which are sliding past each other. And that creates a lot of volcanoes, as well as earthquakes. And this is what scientists think where man evolved, where we first evolved. So let's go to the next slide. Well, let me just continue something else with it. So my theory is that early humans evolving in the Great Rift Valley there saw these volcanoes and saw the lava coming out and creating new land. And that new land became eventually fertile soil, very fertile soil. And so it was kind of like they were seeing creation, especially if they saw an island coming up of the sea or Lake Turkana, which is up there. There are volcanoes that come up through Lake Turkana. So as the early humans, our ancestors, left Africa, they came down the Nile River and they brought knowledge of this, what they thought was a god of the underworld, this god who created mountains and soil and things like that. And they built the pyramids to represent that. I just want to check the time. Okay. So the primary god, well, one of the two primary gods of Egypt was Osiris. Osiris was the god of the underworld. Okay, and Ra, the sun god, was the other god. Let me see what the next slide is. Okay, so here's Osiris. You can see he's underground. It looks like he's underground, and what's that above him? It could be a volcano, right? And those are serpents coming out of there. That could be the lava. It looks like a serpent as it winds down the volcano. And then he's wearing a white crown. Nobody's ever found a white crown in any tomb. Nobody knows what it is, but they call it the white crown, but nobody's ever found one. Nobody knows what it means, but I'm going to tell you today what it means. So, and you see also the white at the top of that mound up there. That's important too. Let's see, what's the next slide here? Okay, so there are volcanoes in the Mediterranean which influenced the Egyptians, and we're going to talk about them in a minute. But there is a volcano here that I visited. So at the bottom left, you see one large island, that's Sumatra, and then just below that, to the right, is Java. And between there is a little strait called the Sunda Strait, and that's where a famous volcano is called Krakatoa. It's pronounced different ways. I'll pronounce it the American way, Krakatoa. One of the most famous volcanoes in the world. And in 1883, some of you may know this, it erupted, basically blew up and spread its ash all over the world. Sunsets were affected for several years, and it cooled the earth. And the resulting tsunami killed about 36,000 people. Okay, let's see where we are here. Okay, so what happened was 2/3 of the island disappeared. And then in 1927, this island emerged from the bottom of the ocean. Okay, so this is called Anak Krakatau, which means the child of Krakatoa. Okay, so that's Anak Krakatau. And this is the island I visited. I rented a fishing boat from Sumatra, and we went across the strait 5 hours in this this whole fishing boat. And I got some other tourists to go with me to help pay for the expense. And when we got to the island, I said, well, let's climb it. And our guide said, no, you can't do that. But I wasn't going to come all the way out here and not go up the island. And so I said, I'm going. And then 3 other people went with me, and some stayed with the guides. The guides wouldn't come. They stayed in the boat. So we foolishly went up about 2/3 of the way up and saw a lot of the fumes coming out. They call them fumaroles, small versions of that. The sulfur compounds coming out smelled terrible. But after we got about 2/3 of the way up, we decided we were getting a little scared, so we went back. We decided to go back. So here you can see an aerial view. The 2 islands on the outside remained, but everything that was in the middle blew up, and that's what spread over the whole earth. The ash spread out all over. It rained ash for days in this area, but a lot of it spread around the earth. So they call this the child of Krakatau. Now, in the Egyptian, there's a myth called what happened to Osiris in Egypt? Osiris had a battle with the god of the sky, the god of thunder, the god of storms, called Set, S-E-T or S-E-T-H. And they battled, and Osiris was blown to bits, or some say chopped to bits, and his parts were spread out everywhere. However, while he was in the underworld, his sister, I think it was, put his parts together again, and he had a child, Horus. Okay, so this is called the resurrection of Osiris. Okay, and so to me, that's what's happening here. Okay, you see, the original volcano disappears, yet here comes a resurrection. And according to my research, this is, in the last million years, this sequence has happened 10 to 12 times. Okay, because they took some core samples from the ocean floor, and they look at the ash that was in the core samples. So that's one of the reasons. Okay, so this is my friends who rented the fishing boat with me. You can see already there's life growing on the island. So if ancient people saw this, they would say, wow, the volcano came and now life is coming here, so they could possibly come up with a creation myth out of this. Let's go to the next slide. Now this, the Indian Ocean, Egypt on the left, Krakatau on the right, and in 2004 there was an earthquake, I'm sure some of you remember that, which killed a lot of people. Does anybody know how many people that killed?
Over 100,000?
That's right, 225,000 people. So I think what happens is, this wasn't due to a volcanic eruption, but it was due to the geology. It's kind of a unique geology there, where Sumatra, see how can I show this? Sumatra is rotating like this, like two arms on a pivot point. That pivot point is the volcano Krakatau. So you get a lot of activity there. And anyway, that's what I think is happening, and that this has influenced mythology throughout that area, including Egypt, and these Judgment Day events, these floods and possibly the flood and the catastrophes are from this particular event. Now this is a volcano I'm going to show you in a second from the Mediterranean. That's Greece on the left, and there's a volcano there called Santorini. Some of you may have even been there. Here's a close-up of it. So you see a similar sequence, a similar structure to Krakatau. The center blew up in 1628 BC, and may have did influence, maybe wiped out the civilization that was on the island of Crete, and some people say that it influenced what was known as the Exodus, the plague and the various things that happened that are mentioned in the Bible. So that's another volcanic influence. This island emerged near Iceland. This is called Surtsey in 1963. Okay, so again, you have ancient people could see these things happening. They had the underworld god, and I'll talk about some more gods later. Okay, now this is back to Krakatau. This is two pictures I took. We're on the right, we're arriving in the fishing boat. Notice what's at the top of this mountain, white powder. So if you put that together with what I showed you earlier, what do you think the white crown of Osiris was? Yeah, possibly the white powder. Those are sulfur deposits on the top of the volcano. So here's Budge's book. He's a famous Egyptologist, Osiris and the Egyptian Resurrection. See what else we got here. Okay, this is so the three volcanoes I visited, Kilauea in Hawaii. Some of you probably been there. That's relatively safe because it's a shield volcano, low viscosity, and the lava flows out kind of laterally like a shield, if a shield were lying on the ground. But this volcano, the one at Krakatau and the one at Santorini and the other ones I showed you, these are stratovolcanoes, and they're shaped like a cone. And what happens is it gets the volcano gets so big that it cannot sustain it, the top of it any longer. And the top, it's called cone collapse, collapses inward to itself, and then that causes this called a phreatomagnetic explosion. And it just explodes and spreads all over. So this one is on the island of Java, which is also part of Indonesia. So it's not far from Krakatau, it's further south. So this one exploded, we think, in about 550 AD and destroyed the civilization that was on Java at that time. Or that may have, we don't know if it was this one or if it was Krakatau, may have been the one that exploded. But the point is, these can influence, well, let me go to the next slide. So here it is again. Now it's in the distance there. And what happens is at the foot of the volcano, this is a very large Hindu monument, sacred monument. And right next to it is the largest Buddhist monument in the world. I think it's called Bodhiboro or something like that. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's, so there are two major ancient religions building their monuments at the foot of this volcano. And I went up there. It was a long drive, several hours drive. A guide took us to the Forbidden Zone, into the Forbidden Zone, and we looked around. I think I have some pictures here. Okay, that's me. We're up in the Forbidden Zone. That is an ash flow that I'm standing on, and if I reach down and dug a few inches down, it's still hot, okay? And when I was there, this volcano was erupting every 20 minutes. It would flow out, it would stop, 20 minutes later, flow out, stop. Very interesting. So let's go to the next slide. All right, another important point. When the volcano throws these rocks out, they call them lava bombs. And this is one picture that I took of one of them on Krakatoa. And that's me standing next to a much larger one. Now, what I hypothesize is that what are angels? Angels are messengers from God. So when these things come out of the volcano, they're like a messenger from God. They're fiery messengers from God, from the God of the underworld. And on the island of Bali, which I also visited, this is the god of Bali. And it looks like a lava bomb coming out of the volcano. The Egyptian hieroglyphs mention turquoise lakes. Most of these calderas are blue-green, turquoise from the sulfur in them. Let's see. Oops, let me back up. That was a good picture. So this is Krakatau also. Of course, we were not there on this day. because we wouldn't have gone up the island, up the island that day. But there's also a thing in the hieroglyphs, in the Egyptian hieroglyphs, it talks about the stars that fall upon the ground and cannot raise themselves again. So to me, that's a reference to these lava bombs. And this is a lava lake, also in East Africa, and the hieroglyphs also mention lava lake. No, they mention lakes of fire, lakes of fire. Okay, volcanic lightning. There can be no clouds in the sky, a completely blue sky, but if you have an eruption, that cloud creates friction, which causes volcanic lightning coming down into sometimes right into the eye of the volcano, volcanic lightning. So, what does that have to do with this? Well, remember the battle Osiris had with Set, the Egyptian god, and this to me is what was happening, and then the island, the volcano exploded, Osiris was defeated, and Set became the dominant god. But then later, Horus has a battle, the son of Osiris has a battle, and then he wins. So that, in that case, the earth god wins. And I think that's the end. Yeah, so this is my last slide. So you see at the top, Egypt, you have an earth god and the sky god, Osiris and Seth. In Greece, you have the Titans and Zeus. In India, you have those gods, Central America, Scandinavia, Rome. So all these myths had this battle between the earth and sky, okay? And that's basically what I wanted to say here, and sorry if I went over a little bit. Thank you for everything.
The sun is swallowed by the sea, curling and swirling.